Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Good morning, I'm Carl Fitzpatrick and welcome to Business Matters. Well, Henry Joseph Grant was part of the team that built Justaid from a bootstrap startup to a multi-billion-dollar IPO. But having assisted many businesses over the years, it was a personal bereavement which caused him to set up a business with a difference. Henry's latest venture, SendOff, will be launched soon, but he joins us now to provide us with a preview and to tell us why this business means so very much to him. Henry, when did you first realise that you had a passion and love for business?
Yeah, I think it was pretty early. I always was kind of interested in the internet and new technology and obviously the business use case for those things. So growing up, I was very hardworking. I first did my first job at 11 years old and then worked pretty much throughout my life, really. So I always had a knack for work and hard work. I think it's the Irish DNA. But in terms of business itself, I think it was probably 2008 when I joined Justaid, and I really understood, obviously, what was possible from a very, very small beginning.
Of course, as you say, you were part of the team that built Justaid from a bootstrapped startup to a $2.4 billion IPO. Talk to us about that incredible journey and what you learned from it.
A rocket ship experience, and we basically built it, obviously, from very, very humble beginnings to become the biggest tech IPO for the previous decade. So I think the biggest learning for me is that everybody needs to be rowing. Obviously, there's no ability for you to actually grow that quickly and carry dead weight. So everybody has to be very accountable and embrace their responsibilities. Essentially, you need to have a team that's obviously wants to win. You won't get to where you want to get to if you obviously have people who kind of just half want it. You have to really fully want it. And that was kind of the case with Justaid.
And Henry, what was the secret behind their success and that hockey stick growth?
So I think I'd like to say we was all super smart, but I don't think it was that, to be honest with you. It was timing. So if you think about the period when I joined Justaid in 2008. The iPhone was released the year before, so smartphones had obviously started to take pace and get adoption. And then also the recession, right? If you think about 2008 when I joined the company, the recession was really kicking in. And obviously, people were unlikely to go out on a Friday evening and spend £200 on a meal for themselves and their wife or vice versa. But they were still going to eat. So, eating in at home became the kind of new luxury. And obviously Justaid really capitalized on that. And also, I think a lot of the early growth, especially when I was on board, was obviously the students' town. So we launched in a lot of student cities around the UK and Ireland. I think it was a mixture of factors that combined, but also we had a very tenacious and driven team that wanted to win. So I think a lot of those factors combined to create the success that you see today.
One of the big problems that lots of world-leading technology companies have is the revolving door of staff coming in and leaving very, very quickly. Was that a problem for Justaid? And if so, how did you try and overcome it?
Yes and no. So I actually, a lot of the kind of perception is when you build a very fast-growing business, it goes through kind of different rounds of investment, Series A, Series B, Series C, and then towards the IPO. Some people believe that you don't need the entrepreneurs anymore. So they think, we're big now, and they get a bit complacent. And I think there was a bit of that at Justaid, to be honest with you. But also, naturally, some people do not grow with the business. So they kind of, a little bit, get out of their depth in terms of the growth stages. I was actually one of the longest serving employees during my era. And I think, what I saw was that actually, you don't plan to obviously let people go. But if you actually realise that you do have to let people go, you need to do it very quickly. Otherwise, they get out of their depth and they get old-timer syndrome. And then you get the old kind of water cooler politics and gossip and stuff like that, really. And I think we didn't have a huge amount of that because we're so busy at Justaid. But I think on reflection, obviously, I think at times you almost have what I call founderitis, where people have served you for so long that you almost kind of feel obliged to keep them in the business. And sometimes the right decision is to move them on for their own benefit and to learn. And then in some cases, obviously you need to keep people that actually do want to leave, right? So you need to retain the entrepreneurial flair and talent as well. So I think, we didn't have the perfect utopian company. I don't think any company's got that. But I think we, the good guys, we did do a good job of keeping them for as long as we could.
The world of sales has changed fundamentally as a result of the pandemic and maybe changed forever as a result of it. What are your thoughts now in relation to developing the sales team for the future?
But I think salespeople, for me, normally they're quite rascals with the company, right? They're really good at the stuff that they do in terms of the exciting stuff like selling deals and all the rest of it. But then when it comes to the behaviours and and understanding the needs of the business, etc. There's a lot of kind of to be asked there sometimes. So what I've always done with the sales teams that I work with is I actually manage them like a product management team. So we work in sprints, which makes the salespeople a lot more accountable, understand the needs of the company in terms of the technology side. And also, another kind of tip I've got is actually to get your sales guys to actually spend time on the customer service and customer success teams, to actually go and do a shift, in a call center or whatever it may be. So they actually start to see the other side of the business and have a lot more responsibility to actually what they put into the business.
It's good advice. Now, having completed another successful exit recently, you've worked for and with venture capital-backed tech startups. Specifically, what traits do you look for in tech startups?
In terms of my career, it's been quite eclectic in terms of space. So I've worked for a range of different verticals, from food tech to mobility to discounting, and now, at the end of life space. So I don't really care about the industry. What I really care about is the actual solution. So I need to believe in the product. I need to believe in the actual purpose, and that's what really motivates me. And in the past, to be completely honest with you, I come back from a sort of commercial-driven background. It was always about, okay, how big can the company be, or how much money can I make personally? And I think we're going to touch on a few things in a minute. I mean, there's been things that have happened in my life where it's completely changed at what I look now for a company. And I'm a lot more kind of purpose-based, where I'm actually looking for things that actually make this world a better place for us. I mean, I've got children, and, I'm a bit more long in the tooth now, a few more grey hairs. And whilst obviously, my experience at Justaid, for example, or to Elixir with mobility has been fantastic, getting people from the airport to a city centre or ordering a pizza isn't really changing their life too much, right? So I really want to do stuff now for the rest of my career that actually revolutionises and changes people's life meaningfully.
Now, you've recently announced the details of your new business, SendOff, and it was your own personal tragedy which prompted you to set up this business.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, we kind of have half announced it. So there's a concept called stealth startup, where basically you don't really show what you're doing. But we've actually done a bit of press, so we're kind of semi-stealth at the moment, where we're actually 1 foot out, 1 foot in. I can say a little bit. So basically, in 2015, I had to arrange a funeral for my son. And over the last 7 years, obviously from that experience and onwards, and every single touch point of the actual sort of grief management space, I've been really underwhelmed. I've been really kind of, quite alarmed that it's quite hard to arrange a lot of the things that you have to do there. I'm from a village in County Derry, and, obviously, yourself in Ireland, that the kind of funeral space is kind of very community-based. Everyone as a community comes together and brings the chairs and the stew and all the rest of it for the funeral. And, my kind of vision is I really want to digitize that. I want to make death a much more, community-based kind of experience, if we can do that with technology, and also to actually take away a lot of the friction in terms of the arrangements, the opaqueness, the kind of lack of value, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of hard for me to say exactly what it is, but we've got the launch announcement coming in next month. But we basically are kind of going to improve things at the most difficult time in people's life. And, that's our strapline, to make a difficult time easier.
It's an interesting concept from what you've said. What type of reaction have you got in terms of doing the market research on this with undertakers and others in that space?
Yeah, so we've done quite a lot of varied kind of market research for our go-to-market strategy. So I've literally gone and sat for evenings with old ladies and old gentlemen in old people's homes, and I've been to funeral directors, and I've been to local authorities, and I've been to all different types of stakeholders in this sort of space, and users obviously. And what's clear is that actually people, and I've been there obviously with my son's funeral, and you just are not in the right state of mind to be making arrangements. You're feeling completely low, it's the worst possible time, and you want to give the person the best possible send off, and then the grief management side of things, as the bereavement start to become a reality and you accept it. There's a lot of people at that point that actually start to get mental health issues, even financial problems. So we really want to kind of tackle a lot of those moving pieces. And it actually just isn't purely the funeral. It's actually the kind of, the whole grief process starts when you lose a loved one till actually when you die. So we want to actually be kind of the companion throughout people's life to actually make that experience a lot easier.
And Henry, how has this business been a different experience for you so far, given your personal connection with it through your son?
Yeah, so I've always been a grafter, right? So I've always really, really worked hard. I think it's the Irish DNA. I think it's hard-coded into us. But basically, it's a different gravy with this, because obviously this isn't money driven, so I don't need to do a startup to have an exit or build my reputation. I've kind of done all of that, and for me, it's genuinely mission driven. So I mean, at the moment, I've got days where I'm working 8 a.m. till 5 a.m. straight at my office, and people think I'm absolutely crazy. And genuinely, I have to pull myself away from my desk at 5 a.m. to at least get a 2 or 3 or 4 hours sleep, because I'm so passionate and so driven about this space. It genuinely is my son's legacy. So yeah, I feel, it's nice in the sense that obviously you can actually do something that you've understood on the other side of the table, but then also, it's also a pressure, because obviously, you want to get this right, and obviously you want to have empathy for the market. You don't want to be seen as kind of like a tech startup, coming in to stir things up and extract value and not add any value back. And that's why we're building our company to be completely opposite of that, and to really kind of be a value add from the beginning.
A launch in the second quarter of this year has been mooted, but how do you plan to build this business?
So I mean, obviously, historically, the businesses that I've been in, they bootstrap for a few years, and then they go and raise VC, and then they keep on raising VC, etc. And then, the view is to have like a large, substantial acquisition, or exit opportunity, shall I say, or potentially an IPO. It's interesting because I sat down a few years ago with Biz Stone and spent some time with him, and he's the founder of Twitter, co-founder of Twitter, and he basically said that after Twitter, he started to look at businesses in a different kind of viewpoint, and he now builds businesses that actually he feels have the potential to be there for 100 years, long after he's gone. And with SendOff, I genuinely feel that we could build something here which could actually be around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And also, I don't think there's a better mission statement than actually wanting to improve the lives of literally every human on the planet. So, I think this is my life work. It feels completely different. So for me, I'm not building this with a view to an exit. Obviously, I think we're going to create a great business, because this is a big, big business space. I mean, it's $115 billion per year with 4.5% CAGR growth. So it's a huge industry. I mean, don't get me wrong, this could be a massively valuable business. But unless we get it right and, really, really solve the problems we plan to solve, then I don't think it's a win for us.
Well, we wish every success with it. Now, before you go, one final question. As you said earlier, you were speaking to the co-founder of Twitter recently. What are your thoughts on Elon Musk mooted to taking over Twitter?
The million-dollar question, right? What people don't appreciate is how important Twitter is going to become, because obviously Web3, cryptocurrency, etc., which we're now moving into the metaverse, etc., Twitter will be the town square for that. So it will be the most important social network by far. And I think this is why, obviously, Elon Musk wanted it so much. So I don't personally think his mission is actually driven by the free speech crusade. I actually think it's because he wants to have ownership of the central platform for the currency of the future.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Henry Joseph Grant from SendOff. And it's great that he plans to build a business that will leave a lasting legacy for generations to come.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Carl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast.